Liberals love a radical agenda until it inconveniences them. They want to defund the police until their city gets burned down. They want green energy, but don't ask them to give up their private planes and SUVs. And they totally support open borders and sanctuary cities until a surge of migrants come to their backyard. This was D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser in 2017.
I can't say it any more clearly of what it means for Washington, D.C. to be a sanctuary city.
But now that her city's flooded with migrants, she's begging for the National Guard.
We need the federal government to be involved. So I've asked for the deployment of the Guard, as long as we need the Guard to deal with the humanitarian crisis that we expect to escalate. The number of people crossing the border seeking asylum, we expect to only go up.
But she's not the only one. New York Mayor Eric Adams is begging for federal help, too, as hundreds of migrants have overwhelmed the city's homeless shelters. We spoke to a few of them last month.
You stay at the shelter last night?
I slept right here on the street. They told us there are more opportunities for work here, more stability, everything we see on TV. But I see that is not true.
You'd think they'd blame Joe Biden's broken border policies for their newfound humanitarian crises, but they're blaming Texas Governor Greg Abbott for busing migrants to their cities. And the New York Times, who's finally waking up to the migrant crisis, is blaming the Republican governors, too. So this week, Governor Abbott invited Mayor Bowser and Mayor Adams to get a little perspective for their problems and come see the real humanitarian crisis at the Texas border. Here's how Eric Adams responded today.
The Texas governor invited us to the border. What the Texas governor should do is invite those who were trying to find housing in his state to give them housing instead of sending them here. This is a real crisis, and I don't know why people are trying to downplay this crisis of almost 100 new arrivals a day. All of those border states that are not doing what we're doing, they need to do a better job.
100 new arrivals a day. Wow, that must be tough. Tell that to the folks at the southern border where more than 200,000 migrants were arrested crossing the border in June. 200,000. And that doesn't even include the gotaways. Imagine if Eric Adams had to deal with that problem here in New York. He'd probably want to build a wall, too. Texas Governor Greg Abbott joins me now. So do you expect Mayor Adams and Mayor Bowser to come to Texas and see for themselves what's going on?
You know, Jesse, I really wish they would, because public officials across the country, they do need to realize the magnitude of the chaos created by Biden's open border policies. They're up in arms about a few thousand people coming into their communities over the past few months. Listen, in any one sector in the state of Texas, we have more than 5,000 people come across that sector every single day. And so, listen, we're full in the state of Texas. Our communities are overrun. And I started busing people to Washington, D.C. when local officials could not handle the number of people that had come across our border. And it's time that these officials in New York, and I'm glad you mentioned the New York Times, they haven't reported about this. They haven't written about the chaos at the border. Maybe finally the New York Times will also start talking about the chaos at the border caused by the Biden administration's change of all the measures that were put in place by President Trump, where President Trump actually did secure the border.
So clear this up for people. You're not handcuffing migrants and forcing them unwillingly onto buses and telling them you're going to New York, you're going to Washington, D.C., as they try to fight to get off the bus. That's not happening, right?
Exactly. They sign a waiver of agreement when they board that bus.
Okay, good, because some of these mayors, Bowser in particular, she can't imagine why anybody would ever even want to go to D.C. She's like, they can't actually want this to be their final destination. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, it's an indictment on our own governance. Do you understand when Mayor Adams says, well, we have a housing problem? Why can't they just find housing in Texas? What would your response be to that?
The cartels are not looking for housing in Texas. Actually, the cartels that are coming through Texas, they are actually trying to get to New York where they can distribute the fentanyl that they're bringing across the border.
Exactly. Well, I think he should take you up on the offer. Maybe he could take a bus just like the migrants. You get the full experience, the bus, the free cell phone, the whole thing, and maybe you'd have a better perspective. All right, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, thanks for coming on. Was there one more thing you wanted to add?
I was going to say, yeah, so when we drop them off, they're empty, so they can get a free ride back.
With gas this expensive, it might be costly, but you know, it's worth the ride. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Criminals are teeing off on police officers. No repercussions at all. You got to see this footage.